Hi, my name is Ryan. Today we're going to be tackling this Corinthian correspondence course. Wow, it is jam-packed with all kinds of information. We're going to take kind of an overview of Pauline letters and kind of the search for the central theme among those. And I know that is still a topic of debate among scholars. And so we're going to look at some of what that looks like um, and then what that means for us. So, Corinthian correspondence looking at Paul's central idea, his central theme, and some of the suggestions are the canonical order of those books, starting with the book of Romans. Is this long letter first because its theology is predominant, and should we pay more attention to that? Those are some of those thoughts. And then as you go on, that's where the debate comes in. So let's just continue to look through that. That central theme found in Romans really centers on this righteousness through faith. Is this Paul's central theology from which everything else is based upon, or is it something else and this just becomes a consequence of some other different theme in Paul's theology? I just want to take a moment here and state that Paul is one of those folks within the scriptures that I can relate to on a human level. Paul's conversion was radical, and his zealousness for this new walk that he had found, this the way God had radically transformed his life, propelled him into this position, plus his past learning, and propelled him into this position to be a voice in a generation, an important voice, one that we still reference and look at and debate on today. And so gaining this idea of what were Paul's central theological things that drove him, and then what were kind of the consequences of that. And that's why I referenced this idea of justification or righteousness through faith. Is that it, or is that a consequence of some other theology that comes in? All right, so I really believe that this might be it, but again, this is up for debate. But this idea of union with Christ, we see this all throughout Paul's letters, this imagery of us as the church, believers, followers of Jesus, being one body. This idea that we all have different giftings and skills and pasts and education and all of these kinds of things. And Paul even saw this in his own life, how God was using that. Every person in the body has a part to play, and the body can only function properly when we all discover what our function is and then operate in that. So is this union with Christ, this one body, the central theological element in Paul's letters? This idea gives us this thought, that when we come to Jesus, when we place our faith and trust in Jesus, we can die to the world and be raised to new life in Christ. In other words, that is not the end. Salvation is not the end. It's a beautiful part of our relationship. It's the redeeming part where forgiveness of sin comes, but it's really the beginning of our walk with Jesus. At that point of salvation, we are casting aside all of our past, all of the things that have gotten us to that point. We're setting that aside. We're dying to ourselves. We're dying to the world. And we are now saying, as Paul said, it is no longer I that live, but it's Christ that lives within me. My wants, my desires, all of those things are gone. I have made this decision to place my faith and trust in Jesus. And I'm going to live the rest of my days fulfilling this calling, fulfilling this commitment that I've made to allow Jesus to now live through me. So is this the central theme of Paul's letters? And then there's the apocalyptic view, it's easy for me to say, that there were some who were all, like 1 Thessalonians, there were some who were already impatient about the return of Jesus. And so, Paul is explaining that we have this new hope, this fulfillment of salvation is still ongoing. We are still waiting for the day, and we still stand today and wait and believe 100% that God is going to send Jesus back to redeem his church. And I cannot wait for that day. But there were some who were already impatient, believing like, hey, I've trusted my life to Jesus. Salvation is complete. Now let's move forward. Let's Jesus come back, set up this new kingdom, all of the things. But salvation, again, is the start of the journey. And it's complete when Jesus returns and God fulfills all of what we see through the rest of the New Testament, the promises that are to come. That Jesus is alive. He sits at the right hand of the Father. And one day, he's going to return for us, his church. So as I stated, this debate about the central theme of Paul's theology continues to this day. But I believe that all of his words are inspired of the Lord, that this idea of justification through faith is, I think it's a consequence, but it's an important element. I think that we are all one body. We are all called to fulfill the function for which God has created us. And I believe that, again, Jesus is coming back. Salvation, sanctification, justification, all of those things are complete on the day of his return, and we can stand before him, hopefully, and I prayerfully that we'll stand before him and hear those words that we long to hear.